Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Chris Eubank was on my mind today. Chris Eubank Jr., that is, not senior, because Eddie Hearn, during an interview, said there's no way Chris Eubank would get the Canelo fight. Now, we know by this point that Canelo has severed his ties with PBC. It was apparently a mutual agreement. Canelo could have held PBC to that contract, of course, but he decided to just cut his losses or move elsewhere. And he's probably going to end up back with Matchroom. And Eddie he mentioned Eubank Jr. He said, no, he would never get the fight. It wouldn't sell. It's not, it's not a viable. And Eddie's a numbers man, purely a numbers man. Well, it got me thinking, now, where is Eubank? What is his situation? Well, let's sift through this a little bit. Let's sift through recent events, shall we say. Eddie Hearn, first of all, let's talk about Canelo. Let's talk about Eubank versus Canelo. Now, to bring Canelo over to Britain to fight Eubank, would that sell out a stadium? I don't think so, but it would certainly sell a very big arena. 20,000. Smaller stadium, I don't know. I don't think it would sell, 80 or 70, 80, 90, but Canelo is a big superstar all over the world, and there would be TV rights, and it would be a massive event. We could see Canelo over here, and he'd be in against Chris Eubank Jr. And Eddie, of course, is a master promoter. He's a great ringmaster, great at selling ice to the Eskimos and all the rest of it. Yeah, I don't think that that's as unrealistic a proposition financially as a lot of people have said. Although, having said that, of course, if Canelo is going to get anything like the $35 million that he was supposed to be getting for each of his fights on his PBC contract, well, maybe it is a bridge too far financially for Britain. 35 million, what's that? 28 million quid, roughly 27, 28 million quid. It's a lot of money, isn't it? A lot of money. You'd have to sell out a stadium for that, really. And I'm not convinced Canelo versus Eubank would do that. But nevertheless, the fact that, you're having to pause for thought, it is interesting. I wouldn't completely dismiss the idea. Now, if you go back to Eubank versus Benn, Eddie says Eubank priced himself out of the Benn fight. Well, Eubank must have been asking for an awful lot of money, because Eddie was absolutely adamant for at least 2 years that this was an absolute blockbuster stadium fight in Britain, with tens of millions of pounds being generated. Therefore, I don't know how much Eubank asked for, but he's entitled to hit to a very big slice of that pie, as is Conor Benn. Because if they're going to sell out a stadium, and if they're going to maybe forge a rivalry that could go over 3 fights, there's a lot of money to be made there. And so I don't know what Eubank, if he asked for 100 million or something ridiculous, or even 50 million, okay, he's priced himself out. But if he was asking for 15, 20, I don't think that's, if you're selling out a stadium, I don't think that's, unrealistic. And I wish we knew the numbers. I don't think we do. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because Eubank versus Benn, yes, it is pretty much a sort of glorified domestic dust-up between two guys with big names. And I personally never liked the fight. I always thought it was a gimmicky fight. But it would sell because of the names. I can't deny that. I think it's a stupid kind of fight, a welterweight against a bloke who's a middleweight and campaigned for several years at 168. I think it's a daft fight, but yeah, maybe Eubank knows his worth. He might be overpriced himself, or is he? You just don't know. And don't forget, Conor is going to be more inclined to agree with Eddie because Eddie's his man, Eddie's his promoter. So, again, I'm sort of ambivalent about Eubank with regard to that. Now, pushing that aside, as he's quote-unquote priced himself out and is not getting the Canelo fight would never get the Canelo fight, both according to Mr. Hearn. I just wonder if Eddie's a little bit irate with Chris. I wonder if how much of this is down to an absolute annoyance that he was strung along. But I also wonder how much of the Conor Benn, that they're asking for so much money against Conor Benn, is down to the fact that Eubank was messed around so much. Told to boil down to 157, that was the agreement. Benn fails a couple of tests, messes up Eubank's plans. Eubank takes a fight with Liam Smith, gets chinned. And I'm absolutely convinced, boiled himself down to 150, whatever he got down to, 158, 159. And then having a fight, 10, 12 weeks later or whatever it was, it must have affected him to go into another training camp, even if you've got another couple of pounds to play with. So I think probably Eubank Jr. is as irate with Hearn and probably was tempted to mess him around as much as Eddie Hearn is irate with Eubank for, again, it quote unquote pricing himself out. The difference, I think, is that Hearn is purely a money man. I mean, you can say that Eubank has almost given up the idea of winning world titles. He wants to maximise his earning potential, which I've got no problem with any fighter doing that, like a Derek Chisora who says, "Just give me the money," because it's prize fight. But I do think that Hearn is more likely to say, let bygones be bygones, put aside our differences if there's money to be made. Eubank Jr. strikes me as being the one who would be more likely to dig his heels in. But having done that, for whatever reason, having bypassed the Benn fight and being told you're not going to get the Canelo fight by the promoter who looks like he's going to be in charge of Canelo for the next fight or two, you've got to ask the question, where does Eubank go? There was a proposition for him to fight Janibek. He didn't want it. He said, "Who the hell's Janibek? I don't know him, never heard of the guy." Words to that effect. Well, he's got a belt. I mean, that's not a bad little bargaining chip to have if you win a world title. Even if you're just interested in money, you got a world title, But he wants the maximum amount of money. But you got to say, well, what are your options, Chris? You're not going to get the Canelo fight. He's got all the belts at 168. You don't want the Benn fight, or you want too much money for the Benn fight, or whatever the situation is. Where are you going to go? And bear in mind, Chris Eubank Jr., I think he's now 34. If he's not 34 yet, he's near as damn it, getting close to it. So I just wonder about this. I just think his career seems to be petering out. And I don't know, maybe he'll rue not taking that massive paycheck against Golovkin all those years ago. Or maybe he'll regret not reducing his demands to take the Benn fight. I don't know. If he's a money man, he seems to be bypassing a lot of good opportunities to make money with very little else on the table. It seems very strange to me. Anyway, give me your opinion on Eubank Jr. Where do you think his career is going, if anywhere? Is it kind of in limbo, like that's how it appears to me anyway? Let me know your opinions and what you think he should do next and who you think he should fight next. And I mean, I don't know what his relationship with the Wassermans is like. I've heard they're a bit irate that he didn't take the Janibek fight, or the Benn fight, especially the Benn fight, because that's where the money was. But the Wasserman organisation and the Sauerlands, that hasn't quite taken off as I think the Sauerlands hoped it would. The Wasserman crew and the Sauerlands jumped into bed together. And yeah, they got some good little Channel 5 shows going on, but the big blockbusters don't seem to be coming. But let me know your opinion. Give me your comments below as usual. And of course, thank you for your time. And please, if you're new to the channel, you could subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And also, if you could like the video, they count the likes apparently. Hit the like button. A little double there. Subscribe. Subscribe with a left hook. Right across on the like button. Much appreciated. I'll catch you later. Looking forward to reading your comments. And bye for now.